ICE has reportedly retaliated against strikers at a Louisiana detention facility over what detainees call gross human rights violations. 48 African detainees are said to have started refusing food on August 10th. They were demanding their immediate release due to prolonged detention and the poor living conditions at the center. For the last few years, Louisiana has become a national hub of immigrant detention, with 11 facilities holding more than 15% of the total population in ICE custody. For more on this, let's bring in Joe Penny. He's a journalist and photographer and filmmaker who has been tracking this story. Thank you so much for joining us. So what did this hunger strike address specifically, and have there been any improvements before the strike ended?
So thanks for having me on. The hunger strike specifically addressed prolonged detention. That was one of the main issues that the hunger strikers were addressing. Remember, these are African hunger strikers, and Black immigrants in ICE detention face longer detention times than any other group. So these men had been in there for 11 to 22 months, so almost 2 years, some of them, without release on bond, release on parole, and they don't know when they're getting out. Beyond that, COVID-19 is spreading. There's a lack of COVID-19 precautions. They were served expired food. And they were treated with using racist tactics, in what they're in their own words. So they started protesting this by refusing food, which is a last-ditch effort. They had actually done a strike in March as well, and ICE retaliated in March as well. They had, in the hunger strikers themselves said that ICE beat at least 3 of them. They said that the ICE beat at least 3 of them in this hunger strike as well. And yeah, so those are the reasons why they embarked on the hunger strike.
And Joe, just to put a fine point on it, because I don't think we mentioned it, and we see them, we just showed video of some of them holding up signs. These individuals have not committed any crimes, and they are asylum seekers, is that right?
Yeah, so they all came in through the Mexico-U.S. border. They demanded asylum legally. It's also important to note that immigration has been criminalized, especially asylum. So there's not that much of a difference between somebody seeking asylum in that way and a different way. But yes, they haven't committed any. They followed the legal process for demanding asylum. A lot of them are Anglophone Cameroonians. They're fleeing a civil war in Cameroon, a brutal civil war that's displaced over 700,000 people. They're coming to the U.S. Thinking that it will be a place that they can start a new life and keep their families safe. And instead, they've encountered some of the most brutal conditions of detention that exist in the entire world.
I'm glad you just made that point, that there is a legal process for applying for asylum, and specifically with regards to Cameroon. I was based in West Africa, covered Cameroon. That civil war is absolutely brutal. It is, in fact, why the asylum laws exist in countries like the United States to protect people who are fleeing that kind of persecution. You write that ICE denied the existence of a hunger strike in an email sent to you on August 14th. How did the agency react to the most recent strike?
So far, I haven't heard back from them about this. So that was about, they denied the hunger strike on both occasions. So I don't know why they denied it. I can only say that the agency has been emboldened by the current president to do basically whatever they want. The current president lies all the time. So I just assume that they're emboldened by the president's lies.
As we mentioned, this group is being held at a privately run Pine Prairie Detention Center. What do you know? What have you learned about the facility's reputation and the living condition detainees face there?
So Pine Prairie and Louisiana, like you said at the beginning of the segment, Louisiana has become a hub for ICE detention. It has the most per capita ICE detention in the country. But Pine Prairie and other facilities in Louisiana are considered some of the worst and have the grossest human rights violations, especially for Black detainees. So actually, what happened to these hunger strikers was that last week ICE broke them apart and sent them to different detention centers around Louisiana. And this type of treatment is common for basically groups that get media attention from their protest. ICE then retaliates by breaking them up and sending them to different facilities so that they're not able to organize efficiently.
In your piece, you also write how black detainees face harsher treatment and penalties than other groups. Tell me more about that.
So yeah, black detainees on average have longer detention times. They have greater rates of deportation, higher bond rates, more solitary confinement, and less access to lawyers. So just on all fronts, black detainees face harsher punishment than almost any other group in the country. One of the other things that's important to bear in mind is how, when we think about immigration issues as a whole in the U.S., a lot of the focus is on Central Americans, Mexicans, and the broader Latinx community. But all the issues that we talk about in the news, like TPS, family separation, the Muslim ban, these are all affecting black immigrants, often at harsher rates than Latino immigrants. So TPS, for example, one of the main groups affected are Haitians. Same with family separation. 44% of families in detention are Haitian. A lot of the family separation, especially the recent spate where you have people as young as 1 year old separated from their families and kept in hotels before being deported, those are majority Haitians, but we don't know that. The Muslim ban, a lot of people think of it as a Muslim ban, but it turned also into an African ban. So restricting immigration from Africa from 25% of the population's from 25% of the continent's population. The metering process, which Trump implemented, which means that you have to demand asylum. When you demand asylum along the border, you have to wait in Mexico along the border. A lot of those people are African immigrants who came in the past 3 years, African asylum seekers who who were forced to live in tent cities in Tijuana and Laredo. So all these issues that immigrants face are black issues as well.
And you know, the reporting on that is horrific. Joe, you also reported on the fact that there are many flights from countries to the U.S. that have been halted, of course, due to the coronavirus pandemic. We know that ICE has reportedly been deporting African detainees to what are being called unknown countries during this health crisis. What have you learned about that?
So what ICE told me after I asked them was that from March 1st to June 20th, they deported 189 African immigrants. As we know, a lot of African countries closed their borders to travel before the U.S. did very early on, and closed all commercial flights. Some of these have reopened, but during that time, a lot of these borders were closed. There was no flights going. So it's unclear. When I asked ICE, how would you deport somebody to a country whose borders are closed and there's no commercial flights, they said that they do it often through a third country. When I asked, what is the third country that you use, for example, for Cameroonians, they said that they couldn't provide that information for security reasons. So it's unclear where they're taking people, where they've been taking people during the pandemic, and basically the accountability is lost.
Joe Penny with some very important reporting. Thank you so much for sharing that reporting with us here at CBSN. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on.